top dill pickles. So just to show you the setup so far, I've got my hot water bath. My boiling water's going, it's ready to go. This water is boiling and hot and ready to go, and I'm gonna go ahead and pour it over my lids so they can be soaking and getting soft and ready for me to put them on. The other thing I realized this morning when I was thinking about doing this video is that I didn't mention in the bread and butter pickle one, or any of my pickle recipes, once you get the brine poured over the pickles in the jars, at that point you can put a lid on it, screw a band on it, and stick it in your refrigerator. And it's going to be good for probably a month to 6 weeks if your pickles that last that long. We like pickles, and we like a lot of pickles, and so because I do them in a big batch like that, that's why I can them. Just a note to self, you don't have to can these, but if you're going to do a big batch, it's certainly worth it, unless you have a lot of friends that you want to give pickles to. So, dill pickles. Although bread and butter pickles are actually my favorite, probably my husband's favorite as well, dill pickles are actually my favorite to make because they're so easy. It's basically sterilizing your jars, which we've talked about before. I put them through my dishwasher with a Santa-Rinse cycle on. If you don't have a dishwasher, just wash them with hot soapy water. I pull them out of the dishwasher, put them on a cookie sheet, and put them in the oven at 250. And they sit there and sterilize basically while I'm getting everything else ready. I took these out of the oven about 5 minutes ago. They're starting to cool down pretty good. And that's fine because for this recipe, I don't want them absolutely hot. I'm going to put not ice cold pickles into them, but relatively cold pickles into them. And you don't want them to break. So the first part of this recipe, other than the whole the setup is, the other thing I like about dill pickles is the recipe is so easy, it's just in my mind. It's equal parts, basically. 1 cup apple cider vinegar, 1 cup water, a tablespoon and a half of salt. I'm doing a lot of pickles. So I've got 4 parts vinegar, 4 parts water, and that would be 6 tablespoons of salt. And this just comes to a boil. And by the time I probably get my jars completely filled up, it'll probably be there. Let it dissolve just a hair. Okay, now, I again am using an old-timey recipe that calls for you to soak your pickles in lime. And the reason to do that is because it makes them crisper. And one of the things that people don't necessarily like about canned pickles is because they cook just a little bit because they're in this hot water bath. And the thing that prevents them from getting really soggy is the lime. Now, while I was doing research on the internet, I saw a lot of things that said don't use the lime because it is very alkaline. You want a acidy substance to be going in these jars that are going to go in a hot water bath. And so if you don't rinse them off really well, then that's going to affect your brine. I'm of the opinion that that's how my grandmother did it, and so that's how I'm going to do it. I think if you rinse them well, like the recipe says, to rinse them well, you're going to be fine. I've probably rinsed these 4-5 times. They were in here, water covered them with a 1/2 cup of pickling lime. Shake it up, you let them sit overnight. Pour it all out, rinse, pour it out, rinse, pour it out, rinse, pour it out. So they're ready to go. Now, again, the other part of this easy recipe is to a pint-sized jar, 2 cloves of garlic, 1 teaspoon of dill seed, and 1/4 teaspoon of red pepper flakes. Now, red pepper, the 1/4 teaspoon is not going to make these hot. It's going to give it a little spice, but it's not going to be bad. If you want them hot, add a 1/2 teaspoon. If you don't want them hot, don't put any in there. And so at this point, I've got those all set up. I'm just ready to pack my jars. And so we're going to put these pickles, and you try to get as many in there as you can. Most of the time I will actually do these in a quart-sized jar, but today I decided to do the pint-sized jars. This is going to take me a few minutes, so let me cut here. I'll get these done and then we'll come back. All right, my vinegar mixture is now boiling, so I'm going to turn that off. At the same time, this is at a full boil, and you can hear it. It's ready to go. We're going to leave the lid on it so it keeps it at that high boil, but you can see it's at a full boil. And what happens is when we take that lid off, all of a sudden the temperature drops. And so you want it as hot as you can get it when you put these in. You submerge them in the water, and then you wait until it comes back up to a boil before you start your counting period. Now we just pour this brine, giving it that 1/2 inch space between our fluid and our rim. And I have got a lot of jars here, so just in case I end up with not enough brine, we can go ahead and can what we have prepared, and then I can just make more brine. That's no problem. Gotten to the part where I can actually pour from this. But I didn't think I could do it without spilling it everywhere before, so there's a little spout on this jar, on this pan, so it helps me pour just a little bit, but see, it's still messy, so I think it's still easier, better to do it this way. May make it. It's looking promising. I think we got it, guys. I think we're gonna make it. close. Put that down there. Now, wet paper towel with hot water. Again, you have to go over those those rims and make sure that they're totally clean. Also, I've shown you my little handy dandy tool for getting the bubbles out. It's in the other room. So just so you know, a butter knife works just the same. And just kind of run them down there 2 or 3 times, and it'll get out any excess bubbles. But again, it's not imperative, because once these are done and you'll pull them out and they'll be sealed, you'll see air bubbles in there. So don't freak out. It just helps a little bit. And if in the process you notice you've lost a little bit of your brine, then just fill them back up. And luckily we have just a little bit left. This one lost a bit. That one lost a bit. I don't know that it's actually losing it, it's just that you're rearranging those pickles and they're getting further in there. Close enough. All right. Now, back to what we're doing. Clean off your rims. This is especially important with the bread and butter pickles and the jams and jellies that are sticky and have sugar in them. Your lids will not seal properly. Yeah. This doesn't have any sugar in it, but it's still a foreign surface on that rim that's between your jar and your seal. So every canning recipe I've ever seen says make sure that's good and clean. I do it and it comes out okay. Next, we put our lids on. And I tend to do everything kind of at the same time, if I can, just because it seems to save time. You wouldn't know it since I can, but I'm really not a very patient person, so I'm sure people are just shocked that I actually do this stuff. Okay, my lids are on. And then the bands. And again, these go on finger tight, which means snug, but not cranked on there. Might help if I get my finger in the right spot. No. You'll have to bear with me, folks. I've been canning for 3 days now, so I'm getting a little loopy, but I think that's why I picked the dills for last, because they're the easiest.
Yeah, it's that time of year too.
Yes, it is that time of year, and I will probably be doing this at least 2 days a week for the next 4 to 6 weeks. Depends on the harvest. Okay, we're done. And when I get tired of canning, then I start giving away food. Let's get this out of my way. And now when you're doing a hot water bath, you have to remember that once you get your jars in there, you need this water to be an inch and a half over the tops of these lids. So when you're putting water in it, you need to account for the fact that as I put these in, that water is going to displace. So you want to make sure that you don't have so much water in there that it's going to run over. Now I just put these in across from each other. And see, as you can see, that was full boiling a few minutes ago. It's now down to a simmer just because we've taken the lid off. But when I put the lid back on, it'll come back up to that full boil pretty quick. Because these jars are filled with boiling liquid, it won't take them very long. Put one in the center. One more. Whoops. Right there. And then we get to submerge them. Something that's protect your hands because you don't want to get them in that boiling water. Lift up, pull these in, and then just lower it in. Alright, put our lid back on, and we'll hear it within, 3 or 4 minutes. It'll be back up boiling again. When it's back up to that high boil, you want to turn it down so that it's back at a simmer. And then 5 minutes is all it takes. When that's over, we'll be back. Alrighty, our 5 minutes is up, and these are ready to come out. Turn off the heat, uncover. Uh-oh. One thing about our videos are you're going to see bloopers as they happen.
Oh no.
Occasionally, you'll have a jar that busts. I can see it down here. And the only thing I can figure is it's a defect in the jar itself. It didn't slam into anything. There's no reason that it broke. I've got however many others of those in there that didn't break. But this one, for some reason, the bottom came right out of it. Usually when that happens, you'll hear it. I stepped away and went to the restroom, so it probably happened while I was out of the room. But it really doesn't matter. It's not going to affect anything. Your jars are sealed. You just lost one jar, but that's not a big deal. Because we made so dang many. Alright, so these are done. Now I could take the time and scoop all those cucumbers out of there before I do this, but not worth it. Actually, instead of doing that, I don't know why I'm trying to fish in there. I'll pull our basket up. One side, goes on the other side. Get that one dumped over first. Not that it really makes any difference, but these wide mouth jars are. I like the wide mouth jars better than the regular size, just because it's easier to get stuff in and out of them. But as far as this part of it, sometimes they're a little bit harder to manipulate just because they're wider. So let me take all of these off. Set them here on our rack, and they're going to cool. And we'll start hearing them ping here in a little bit. Tell us that they're sealed. And then you just pull them out, you let them cool, preferably 12 to 24 hours. You'll know which ones have sealed and which ones haven't by that little dimple that I've told you about. I know I had a paper towel around here because I'm just like the queen of paper towels. There's one right there. And we just kind of wipe off the extra moisture on the tops of the lids. When they've sealed and we're finished, then we'll take off these bands and wipe off the jars and the rim edges really well. We now know that we've definitely got vinegar and stuff on them. It won't be sticky, but it still needs to come off. And we store them without the bands. Now this one was the one extra jar. I don't know if you were noticing earlier. I filled all of them and I had one left over. The one left over is going to be our refrigerator pickles. If you remember earlier in the video, I told you that anything that I do can be done like this. Don't even worry about the canning. Put it in the refrigerator and it'll be good. Give it, 3 or 4 days at least so that it can absorb all those flavors. And then it'll be good for 6 to 7 weeks, whatever. Generally they don't last that long. I have another one here for my brother-in-law that I just did, so I'm gonna put it on. And his are gonna be refrigerator too. And a lot of times with my pickles, when I'm storing them, I tend to turn them upside down. That way these on the bottom are getting all that marinade. When you flip up to start eating them, then all the bottom's gonna get their marinade. So that's just the way I do it. Okay, thanks for tuning in to LT's Hobby Farm. Please subscribe if you enjoy our page. Hit like. We'd love to have as many subscribers as we can. Please share our page with others if you enjoy it. Thank you very much.